Hello and welcome to More to the Story with Molly White. I am so happy that you joined me again today. And believe me, this is probably going to be one of the best podcasts that we've ever had because of the guests that we have on today. And I'm so excited to be able to introduce her to you in a few minutes. Before I do, though, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Dr. Steve Hotze, with the Hotze Health and Wellness Center out of Katy, Texas. And if you want to stay healthy, that's the clinic to contact because that's what they focus on is to keep you healthy. So we really appreciate the Hotze Health and Wellness Center. Now I'd like to introduce Mary Browning, my awesome co-host. And if you'd come in and say hello, Mary.
Thank you, Molly. It's so good to be here with you today. And like you, I'm excited for our guest today. You know, Molly, we do plan on doing two parts. So we're starting part one with our guest. Also, I want to mention that we don't expect particulars about our topic today, but there may be some things said today that could trigger someone listening if you have abortion in your past, or if you have helped someone in some way in obtaining an abortion, or if you had a child aborted that wasn't, and you did not want that to happen. So we just want you to know there is hope and help and healing. You can find those resources at operationoutcry.org. And we hope you will take that invitation to step into healing if you find yourself with an emotional reaction today. Thank you, Molly.
Amen. Thank you, Mary. And I'm so excited. I'm trying not to fangirl here or girl fan or whatever, but I'm very excited about our guest today. I met Janet Folger Porter. Really, I learned about her because I've heard her on the radio. I've seen her on TV for her pro-life activism and her boldness. I've read some of her books, and she really is the only person, I guess, that really encouraged me to step out and get involved in pro-life activism. I knew God called me to do it, but reading her books and seeing uh, her determination to end abortion just inspired me. And so Janet Folger Porter is the founder and president of Faith to Action and the architect of the pro-life heartbeat bill, which we did pass in Texas. So it ensures that if a heartbeat is detected, a baby is protected. So Janet, please come in and say hello and welcome to More to the Story with Molly White.
Hi, thank you so much. So glad to be here with you.
Thank you, Janet. So the heartbeat is a big topic going on. And of course, here in, just within a couple of weeks left for a big, huge election. And we have, a presidential candidate who's radically pro-abortion. We have all of the, money being spent by the abortion industry to disinform voters about the, women's rights. And then we have all of these amendments in these battleground states that want to enshrine abortion as a constitutional right. So come in here, Janet, and tell us what your perspective is and what's been going on around the country.
Sure. I guess I'm not really known for being subtle. All right. So the choice in this election is life or death. All right. For those who are not clear, God's voter guide says choose life. Yeah. Live baby good, dead baby bad. It's just that simple. I don't want to necessarily say who I'm voting for or anything. Sorry, I'm just straightening my chair here. It's just such an important decision that I just think it's going to take. Excuse me, a little bit thirsty there. It's going to take some courage to stand up and to be bold in this hour. And I'll just say this. It's not even a question of life or death. It's Kamala Harris stands for abortion until 9 months and beyond. That's partial birth abortion. And as you stated, this is happening now again. It happened in Ohio on the ballot, in Michigan, Vermont, California. Now these 10 states with abortion on the ballot, that's all partial birth abortion that they want to bring back. And by the way, those states, if you are broadcasting this further, or if it gets out on the internet, it's Arizona, Colorado, Florida, Maryland, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, Nevada, New York, and South Dakota all have abortion, so partial birth abortion on the ballot. And what's happening here is what we've experienced in Ohio. The mob with the most money is coming in to make state laws. They've got foreign billionaires, out-of-state millionaires that are pouring money, blood money, into these states to try and convince voters. They're lying. They're flat out lying to them. And
Flat
so
out
we've got to
lying.
pray for those 10 states. We've got to
Mhm.
really make sure that they know what's really at stake. It's not about, they'll talk about a women who will be denied miscarriage care. Oh, there's so many lies. So many lies. And another lie, by the way, is one we heard regarding the Georgia heartbeat bill. That's not responsible for the taking the life of anyone.
No.
What that was instead was a policy that Kamala Harris backs that says we can hand out abortion poison, the
chemical
RU46 mifepristone. That is something that they're now giving out to women without any doctor supervision, and
That's
1 in
right.
25 end up going to the emergency room, and some
Yes.
end up dead as a result, not of Donald Trump, not of the Georgia heartbeat law, but because of the pro-abortion bloodlust of people like Kamala Harris and the policies that are killing women and children. So we've got, I believe, the most important election of our lifetime. I believe it's going to take everything we have from now until then. If you've never engaged in what I call high octane prayer, that's fasting, this is the time. We need mountain moving prayers, because it's not, we've got to win this election. We've got to make sure that the ballots are counted right, that we've got a fair and free election. And that's something that's coming under fire right now. I have a friend with 2 additional friends who had personally, just in Ohio, their ballot pre-selected for them. They went in to vote, and it's already selected for them. And that's not how it's supposed to work in America. Others that are flipping. If you vote for President Trump, the machines are flipping your ballot. And if you just vote and walk away, your vote may very well be registered for a candidate that you didn't want. And so you've got to check the vote, you've got to check the printout, and you've got to be very vigilant and very sure about what's happening, because they're going to try and steal it again. Make no mistake. And that's one of the other prayer points that we need to focus on.
Absolutely. And we're seeing that even here in Texas. I think Texas is another battleground state behind the scenes, but we've had some very interesting cases where people are saying that they'll vote for one candidate and it switches to another right there in front of them. So we do need to make sure that when you're placing your vote, that your candidates are the ones that are being counted. And for me, it's important for women who've had an abortion, who've been hurt by abortion, and mothers and women to support the pro-life candidate. We've got to get out to vote. We've got to get our friends out to vote. We've got to get our neighbors out to vote, and they need to vote for the only candidate that's going to turn this country around and defend women and children. So
by the
that's
way,
my feeling.
I've told you both before. I'll say it again. I think the most powerful voice in this issue are the women who've been there. The ones who've experienced the trauma of what abortion is. They have the most powerful voice. And so while Satan may have meant it for evil, it may have stolen a child from you, we can get that recompense to save millions of lives. If you use your voice to be that voice for the voiceless, as we're commanded to be in Proverbs 31:8, to rescue those that are being carried away to death, as we're commanded in Proverbs 24:11. It's an issue of obeying God. A lot of people say, political issue, want to stay out of it. Listen, this is not what this is. What this is it's a right or wrong, a morality issue.
That's right.
I remember I was testifying one time. I told this story before, but I was testifying, and there was a committee chair or a committee member who said, "Where do you come off saying that to be pro-life, you've got to be Christian, you have to be pro-life?" She says the Bible is a book about tolerance, and Jesus never used the word abortion.
No, it is not.
And I said, well, if you open that book, you'll see that thou shalt not kill made the top 10 commandments, not suggestions. And what Jesus had to say is, if you love me, you'll keep my commandments. That's what it's about. It's about obeying God in every corner of our culture, every sphere of influence. And I think the biggest lie of our lifetime, perhaps, is one that says to the church that you've got to stay out of it. You've got to remain silent and hand over the keys of power and authority to the tyrants who hate you, hate your God, and hate his ways. It's the biggest lie that we've got to overcome. We've got to wake up the church, who are still sitting on their some say blessed assurance. They're still in the pew. While the Super Bowl for America is going on, they're not even in the stands.
And even if you sit silent, you're still accountable. You're going to be responsible for the outcome of this election. And your silence in the face of evil is evil itself. In fact, in the Hebrew, the word silent in the face of evil means that you're participating in an act of evil. So you can't sit silently. You can't sit on the sidelines. You can't sit this one out because you might not like the personality of one, or, whatever. You've got to do something because you're going to be held accountable for that. That's my
I'm gonna.
belief anyway.
I agree. I'm going to be meeting for breakfast with my pastor tomorrow, and one of the things I want to tell him is that there's an accountability. We have, and it says in Ezekiel 33:6. But if the watchman sees the sword coming and does not blow the trumpet, and the people are not warned, and the sword comes and takes any person from among them, he has taken away in its iniquity. But his blood I shall require from the watchman's hands. What does that mean? That if we see the sword coming, if we see the danger, the threat to children, the threats to our liberty, and we don't sound the alarm, we are responsible. God is going to hold us accountable. And I'm going to tell you something. That's a very stark warning for not just Christians, but for the pastors in particular. If the pastors rise up, if they speak up, we get our country back. And if we
Amen.
don't, I'll tell you what, we're going to incur the judgment of God. And I think that we're on the brink right now of whether we save America or whether we lose America. That's where we are.
Absolutely.
I'm really glad you mentioned that, Janet. There's really three things that I hear you saying, and they're really calls to action. There are calls to action for the church person to find out, to understand what the real issues are. You've pointed out a number of occasions. I'm remembering that Georgia news report where it makes it sound like it's the heartbeat law is the reason those two women died, and it's just not true.
Lie.
So it is an
She actually died of the abortion drug. That's what she died of, was the abortion drug.
It was the mifepristone. It was the drug, and it was the lack of care. It was the lack of doctor involvement. It was all kinds of things, but certainly not the heartbeat bill. It wasn't that.
I was actually at the Supreme Court the day they were deciding that, whether the FDA was going to allow this to be given out to women without any doctor supervision. And it was crazy town. I'm telling you what, they came out of the woodwork to try and make sure that women could kill their children and be put in harm's way without any kind of safeguards for them. And so that's what's leading women to 1 in 25. I'm told that now go to emergency room because of this chemical warfare against their unborn children that, as we see in the case of Georgia, took the lives of the mothers as well. It's not Trump's fault. It's the policies of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. That's really what's done it.
And it's not just the women, it's the girls too, because there's no age requirement of who can be given this drug. And there's really no requirement that anybody is overseeing the dispensation of that drug. So thank you for mentioning that.
Or not even a requirement for an ultrasound to see how far along you are, the gestational stage, of her health history. I mean, you can order them online without any, medical consultation at all, or one that's very, let me say, I don't even know, not very professional. But, in Louisiana, they actually passed a law saying that mifepristone is a dangerous drug. So it's not, an abortion pill. It's a dangerous drug and should be classified as a dangerous drug. And I know Mary was at the Supreme Court at that time. We did a podcast after that, but we had Dr. Donna Harrison and an attorney with ACE, what's it? American Liberty. Yes. And they were talking about that case, but I was just so blown away that the Supreme Court justices would not look at the harm that this drug does to women and consider that more than anything else. I mean, it just made me feel like they don't care about women's lives and women's health and our children. It was very disappointing.
It does underscore the need to be educated. So I'm hearing Janet really issue some calls to action. And one of them is to be educated, to understand what these laws do and what they don't do, and to really be discerning about what news you're listening to and whether it's the truth or whether it's a lie. Right. And if you're in the church, get registered and vote in a way that is lined up with biblical principles. So I was just hearing those two calls to action. I really wanted to just be very specific about to our listeners about what you're saying today and what you're asking people to do. Get out and vote.
It's like putting your faith to action, right, Janet?
What a novel idea. That's brilliant.
Yes.
Who thought of that?
I wanted to also say that we're getting the message out in lots of ways. I've created a song. It sounds a lot like Kamala Harris' voice. Don't tell Gavin Newsom. But if you follow me on Telegram or on X or Truth Social, you can see that. But we've also put our message out to communicate the truth in love in the form of a sitcom. The reason I'm bringing this up is because I heard your sponsor was Dr. Hotze, who's my doctor, who's my friend, and
Really?
he's one of the sponsors of our "What's a Girl to Do" sitcom. I
I
wrote a
think
book.
I saw that because I've watched some of those. I didn't watch the last one yet, but I've watched those sitcoms, so that's cool.
The last one is the best one, but it aired this summer on the PTL network. But you can actually watch the full episode when you go to both whatsagirl.com. I know it sounds gender confused, but trust me, it is not. Whatsagirl.com or Faith to Action, F2A.org. You can see those states that I enumerated that are in harm's way. See if your state is one of them. Make sure that you vote against this abortion till birth and beyond initiative in your state. Find out where the candidates stand. But you can watch the whole. You can watch the whole episode 7, which happens to deal with the election. Again, I hate to show my hand on where I am, but you'll see it when you watch it.
Well, I'll get our producer to put that on there. Whatsagirl.com. I love that series. And F2A.org. Please put that up there. I see that you got it going now. But those are very, very good and very educational as well. So, Janet, we've had some guests on our show from South Dakota, from Missouri, and Florida about their particular initiatives. But I think I'd like for you to explain again to our listeners, what is it going to mean, not only just the partial birth abortion, but if these amendments are put in these states' constitutions?
Well, it is. Think of the most extreme position you can imagine. Well, it's the position of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, but it's in the state. What it will mean is it will wipe out, as it did in Ohio, as it did in Michigan, as now these 10 states are in the crosshairs. It would wipe out 50 years of pro-life laws that are on the books. Everything from the ban on partial birth abortion to parental consent to the woman's right to know law to fetal homicide regulations to the heartbeat laws. Boom, gone like that overnight. It's also many of these have, and we saw it in Michigan, we saw it in Ohio, where they want to remove all protections from children from parental oversight. To give, who cares about their children more than the parents? No one. And what they want to do is take parents out of the situation. They want to hand out puberty blockers. They want to make sure that children are maimed surgically by these operations that take a confused child, which according to the American Psychiatric Association is gender dysphoria. It's a mental disorder. So if someone has a mental disorder, what do? Do you chop off healthy body parts, or do you get them the care and the help that they need? That's really what's going to be taken from parents, the right to know about it, the right to intervene and to help a confused child. All of this is on the ballot. And I want to just give people some hope. All right. No matter what happens on November 5th with these ballot initiatives, know this. We're not going to stop fighting. We're not going to quit until every child is protected again, every woman is protected again, and we are going to be filing lawsuits against these unconstitutional amendments. The bottom line is this, and we put it out in our. We had postcards that went out that God-given rights can't be repealed. We have the inalienable right to life. This is not coming from the state; it comes from God. And so what happens is it's not the mob with the most money. And that's what's been happening. The mob with the most money comes in, and how many ads can they buy to deceive the voter, to strike down the laws that were passed by the people through their elected officials. What this does, it not only strikes down things like the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, First Amendment in our state constitution, it strikes down the ability of having a republic form of government. We don't have democracy. Who talks about that? But remember the pledge we used to say, to the republic for which it stands. Remember? Yes. Because we have not a direct democracy. A direct democracy is where two wolves and a lamb vote to have what to have for lunch. The lamb's not going to fare so well in that situation. Right. A republic form of government is to protect the rights of the minority, those with no voice, those with no war chest of money. And so we have actually called the guarantee clause in the U.S. Constitution is one that guarantees us a republic form of government, which these initiatives, with these state amendments, completely rip to shreds. They don't have the right to do that. You can't. And not only that, it's not just an amendment to a constitution. They're wiping out entire state constitutions, which
Mhm.
is a revision, which has to be done with the
Mhm.
Constitutional Convention, not with a simple
Not
up
a
or down
vote.
vote.
Ah,
Mhm,
very
mhm.
good. Now that's something
Good.
I just learned and
It's
was
creative.
yeah.
Mhm.
And you're right, it does take away the people's voice and the people's vote, and that's what we've been working for all these years. And of course, it's in our Constitution. And that was really interesting that you brought that up, especially about the Democrats like to call us a democracy. And that's a play on words, and it's deceptive. And I always have to remind, I never use a word a democracy. We're a constitutional republic.
Republic. Mhm.
We're because democracy is like you said, a lot different, but they like to continue to use that word in describing us as a government or as a people, but we're not. There's a big difference between both of them.
I think it was Benjamin Franklin who was asked, he was credited with this. That they asked him, what have you given us? He said, a republic, if you can keep it. But it's
Mhm.
up to us right now in this next election to keep it, to
Yes.
do what it takes, to put our faith to action, to vote, to choose life according to God's voter guide, to find out where the candidates stand. If you're not sure where they stand, here's one way to find out. You can go to ivoterguide.com. ivoterguide.com, and you can see where the candidates stand. I think that's the most reliable voter guide I know. It's the easiest way to find out. Other groups have put out voter guides. Sometimes I get in the ballot box and I want to see if I can't find the name of a judge or a clerk or someone. I look to see where the pro-aborts, what they've endorsed, and I vote the opposite. So we just have to make sure that we are informed, but that we go in and we cast that vote and we choose life,
Yes.
because we and our children and now our country depends on that vote right now.
Yes.
It's got to be two things
Absolutely.
rigged, because they are trying to cheat it. We already know the reports that are happening.
Mhm.
It's something we need to fast. We need to pray. We need to vote and bring people to the polls. Drive them to do what I do. Vote early and then take election day to drive other people to. That's what I'm going to be doing, and I hope others who are watching will do the same.
Absolutely. And I want our producer to put
iVoterGuide.
iVoterGuide.com up on the screen. But we are in a battle. And it's intensified this election, and it's a huge battle. But we don't have to go to war. We don't have to shed blood. But what we have to do is vote. We have to vote to save our constitutional republic. And there's nothing more important than that right now. And it's
Yeah.
easy. Early voting is easy. There's voting locations you can go to anywhere. It's the easiest thing to do. Sometimes when you wait on election day, there might be longer lines, even though right now I'm hearing there's huge long lines everywhere during
Yes,
early
I
voting.
Even
experienced
early
I
voting.
think that's
Mhm.
a good sign for us. But, there's really no excuse. I think most states have made it where there's no excuse not to vote if you're a registered voter. They've made it easy for us, so we want to make sure
Yes.
that we do that. Well,
Yeah,
we're about out of time, but we do want our listeners to know, like you said, Mary, we're going to do a part 2 with Janet because there's so much information to share. This is a critical hour that we're in, and we want to continue this discussion. So,
I
Mary, do you
had, I
have
had
some?
a couple of things I wanted to say. I wanted to thank Janet for mentioning the importance of those of us that have abortion in our past for speaking out, because I do think it's an important time for that. And it is a way of acknowledging that our children exist. They've existed, and it gives them some purpose that even now we're not letting we are remembering them. And so we want to be sure that people that have abortion in their past feel empowered and encouraged to speak out and to step out of the shadows of shame. The other piece of this, I wanted to recognize your persistence, Janet, because you have said that, we're not going to regulate abortion. We're going to end it. So this is a battle. A friend of mine recently described the battle we're in as a civil war, where we have accepted the fact that our own offspring are our enemy. And I'd never heard that
Wow.
framed that way before. So I would say we are in a battle. So when we're talking about the bloodshed, there's innocent blood being shed. And we really do need to step up to the plate here and don't rest on our laurels or think somebody else is going to pick up this banner and run with it. Or it really cannot possibly be as bad as Janet is saying today. It is this bad.
and worse.
It's even worse.
It is
One of the other things in the amendment, that because Missouri has it on our ballot this year, is also to take out any accountability. So if somebody harms a person in the process of abortion, there's no accountability. There's taking out any accountability, even for the abortionist. If there was a surgical abortion that, let's say, rendered someone barren or worse. We have a friend whose daughter died on the abortion table, and the 911 wasn't even called until rigor mortis had set in. So there's all kinds of information out there that we really need the public to understand. This is as bad as it sounds. We're not exaggerating. This is important.
Let me interject one other thing that very often gets overlooked because there's so much to talk about. But in these ballot initiatives, as in Ohio, it's a Predator Protection Act, because the immunity is not only for the abortionist, it's for anybody that aids and abets in the taking the life of this child. So imagine you've got a 40-year-old man who impregnates a young girl. He takes her in to get the abortion. He is completely exempt from any kind of liability because he's enabling this right, and he's now exempt by this thing. So
Yes.
basically, you could have a trafficking organization going on.
Yes.
You could have the pimps bringing in these young girls, killing their children, going back out in the streets, and they are completely exempt. Planned Parenthood would be exempt for handing out the abortion pills, for maiming your child, or giving these very dangerous sterilizing puberty blockers. This is all covered with immunity. They're not only going to have carte blanche to do whatever they want, they're going to do it without any repercussions and any ability of parents to intervene or to have any kind of justice on the other side of this.
That's right. I mean, it's like I've described it before. It's like we'll be opening up Pandora's box, if we allow these amendments to pass in these states. And like Janet said, even God forbid it happens, there's going to be a fight to the very end, because it's unjust, and it's going to do nothing but bring more harm, hurt, and death to our country.
Would you remember when we passed 28 marriage amendments, but that the guaranteed marriage was between one man and one woman? Do you remember what happened? In Obergefell, the Supreme Court struck down all of those state marriage amendments that we all wanted. We all worked for, right? They struck them down in one fell swoop. If they can Obergefell us on the real definition of marriage between one man and one woman, we can Obergefell them. We can get a Supreme Court decision, just as we saw them overturn Roe versus Wade, finally, to the ash heap of history. We can see the Supreme Court also rule against these unconstitutional violations to state rights, parents' rights, constitutional rights, and the God-given rights that we have, that we're endowed with by our Creator, not by the state, but by our Creator. And so this is something to keep in the back of your mind. Do not lose hope. Do not despair. We're going to fight no matter what. We're going to pray, and we're going to work to win in these ballots. But if we don't, we are going to sue them, and we're going to see Obergefell work for us this time.
Amen. Amen. It's like my motto: never give up, never surrender until justice is done, until right is done. It's not like, we have to pray, and I'm a praying woman. Mary's a praying woman. Janet is. We have to pray. We have to fast. We have to encourage our brothers and sisters in the Lord, but we have to put our faith to action. Faith without works is dead. So we have to put our faith to action, and that means get out there, get educated, educate others, and vote as if your life depended on it, because it does, and it does, and it's far more than the abortion issue that our country is facing, and for me, it's our constitutional republic. Are we going to stand, or are we going to fall? That's the way it is for me.
Yes,
and I'm going to vote for standing, as a constitutional republic. Yes. Well, Janet, thank you so much. We're going to bring you back and have a part 2 to this series, because I just think this is so important. And we want to thank you all for listening to More of the Story with Molly White. Thanks to my awesome co-host, Mary Browning, for coming on. Janet, thank you. We'll see you again on part 2. And we hope that y'all stay tuned in for part 2 as well. Thank you for joining us. God bless.